So today we have Cleveland, South Florida, man, the hottest young broker out of South Florida with SVN. Man, yeah, thanks so much for coming on. This is the CRE Arena. We're talking all things commercial real estate, and the goal of this podcast of this show is that whoever's watching it and the people on it gain more knowledge and helps them be more successful in whatever they set out to do. And in this instance, in this arena, we're talking commercial real estate. So, Cleveland, man, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here, and super excited just to be on your show.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you coming on. And like I said, you've created some buzz pretty early on down there in South Florida, and I know the guys. You've teamed up with Adam and Elon, and those guys are very well respected in their field. And, they've been doing a great job down there for a while, and just that office as a whole. So I know the office itself is a little bit newer, but I mean, like, the success you guys have had, like, out of that office is just crazy. How old is that office?
Just a little under 2 years.
Yeah.
So I know Elon joined about a year and a half ago, also Adam. So just a little shy of 2 years.
Yeah. And, I know it was started by some industry vets, that have also had great success in Florida already. So it was just kind of expanding of the footprint, if you will. But, Stephen Paulson, I know he's up in there in the Boca office. I know they got a few key players, Adam, Elon, that have really just, allowed the office to take off. So I've just been super impressed by what y'all have done. And yeah, man, you're a part of an exciting team. So. So no, that's good, man. So I wanted to get in and just tell me more about yourself. So I know you've been in the business world for a little bit now. Kind of, are you local to Dade? Were you raised there? How'd you get into commercial real estate? Just, kind of how did you get where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale. That's my hometown, and had an opportunity to really see the ins and outs of that city. I grew up in a single parent home. My mom worked in housekeeping in the hotel for all of what I can remember, and she worked really hard. I grew up with my younger brother. He was deaf, so I know a little bit of sign language as well. So one thing for sure, I grew up as an intermediate, as I would love to say, somebody who always was in the middle. My brother, he spoke American Sign Language, and my mom spoke Creole. My mother is from Haiti, so I am a first generation Haitian. And so it gave me the opportunity to always be that person, the middleman, or as you would say, the intermediate. And so I think that's why I've always been interested in being a broker. I've been interested in sales, because typically you're always selling a product, and where you have to bring a person where there's, like you say, the meeting of the mind. You have to be that person to do so. So, growing up in South Florida, I was able to learn so much about what it means to be street smart. I learned about people with all kinds of sorts of diverse backgrounds, and I learned how to adapt and speak with people from all different parts of the world. And so that's pretty much where I started in Fort Lauderdale. I eventually went to FAU. I got my degree in communication. And after I graduated FAU, I went straight into sales. And so I did 10 years in doing sales. My first job doing sales, I was knocking on doors, just learning what it means to go through the sales process. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things, is to go out knocking on doors and to canvas, residential neighborhoods. So. Now, how did I get into commercial real estate? Well, right before I got into, I joined SVN. I was a sales manager selling furniture, and when I made that decision to I make that transition, I had Elon reach out to me. Me and Elon, we go way back on the days of Enterprise Rent a Car, when I used to rent cars, and he reached out to me and said, Cleveland, I understand you want to go into residential real estate, but I really want to offer you an opportunity to join me on my team with commercial, because there's plenty of opportunities here. And I believe in you and your work ethic because I've worked with you before. And so I said, you know what, let me give it a shot. I came over here to the Boca location. I sat down with the managing directors here. I connected with them immediately. We had a lot of commonalities. So definitely, I feel like this is a perfect fit as far as the people in the office and the right energy. Like you mentioned, Adam, we have Elon, we have Fuji, Syra, the list goes on, Steven and John. So we have a great team that meshes very well, and I think I fit just perfectly well in this team.
No, man, that's awesome, and that's one thing. So, and remind me, you have 4 kids, right?
Yeah, I have 4 kids. I have one on the way, and around like August 15th. Yeah, it's gonna be number 5. So number 5 is on the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have 2, and then the third is in the oven. So, are you having a boy or girl?
It's gonna be a surprise. Me and my wife decided not to reveal the sex of the child. It's always exciting for me, the traditional finding out the sex of the baby.
Have you done that every time?
Yes, actually we have.
Wow.
Maybe just one child when I really wanted to know whether it's going to be a boy. But so out of the 4 children that we currently have, we did 3 times when we didn't know the sex of the child.
I was gonna say, it makes sense now that you wouldn't find out the gender, or you just don't care because you have a couple of each. So it's like, hey, we've got the ground covered. So now the 5th, it's like, hey, we either know it's gonna be a boy or a girl. So but yeah, that like level of like patience and excitement. So we found out at like 10 weeks. Like the soonest you could. We did a blood test and found out. No, man, that's so exciting, and that's one thing that I talked to Jonathan Breris here at our office is, the one thing about new advisors that you can tell if they're going to do great in the business or not is what is their motivation. So, Raphael, he joined us from the Orlando office, and, JB asked me, it's like, hey, what do you think about Raphael, and how do you think he's going to do? And I believe he's either got 3 or 4 kids. And that was one thing I noticed about you very early on. When you came on the scene, I was like, okay, we got another young guy in the firm. Like, let's see how he's going to do. I found out you had 4 kids, and I was like, well, this guy can't suck. This guy, he's got to bring home the bacon. He's got to make it work. So, and that's, I've seen you, putting in the calls, doing the property tours, and, kind of documenting your journey through LinkedIn and social media, I think has been really cool. So, but yeah, that was one thing very early on I could tell was, hey, this guy's new to the business, but he's got a fire behind him, and it's that beautiful family you got. So,
thank you.
So yeah, in documenting your success or your like start in the industry, how'd you get that idea? Did you come up with that on your own, or was that like an additional thing you like brought to the table with Elon and Adam, or where did that come from? Because you do a great job at it, and like I said, you got on my radar, and I know a lot of other people's radar is like, hey, here's this new young commercial real estate advisor out of South Florida that's getting after it. So how did that come about, and also like what type of activity or success have you seen from that?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually came about from, Elon was training me and giving me some ideas about how to get exposed. And one of the most important things about being a very young and new broker is exposure. You want people to know that you are in commercial real estate. And I said there is no better way to do that but to do it through social media. And so, I can make cold calls all day. It's going to take me about 50 phone calls for me to hit. Even if I hit 100 phone calls, even 200 phone calls a day, it doesn't have the same leverage as in comparison to social media. And so I wanted to add social media as part of my process just to make sure that I can get as many eyes to what I do and what I'm passionate about. I care about commercial real estate more than anything about commercial real estate. I care about people who own commercial real estate, and therefore it should allow me to have more business development opportunities, and hopefully people can see me as somebody who's hungry, ready to rock the commercial real estate space here in South Florida. So I would say we collectively came up with the idea. Elon, he told me that I have to touch all bases. I mean, phones, emails, text, every avenue that I can possibly go through, I should be going through that avenue. And I took it personal. And I said, let's do it, and let me make that commitment. And the only way we can see success is through consistency. And so I said, you know what, let me see if I can do this every single day, not just once in a while. Consistency is something that I really wanted to drive home.
Yeah. No, that's huge, and that's one thing, contributing to the team very early on is, a younger advisor that jumps on a team. It's like, hey, guys like Adam and Elon, they may not have enough time to, hey, really plan out or just remember to shoot, content on social media. But if that's something that's at the front of your mind and you can remember to do and bring value to the team, that's a great way to, not only like get started in the business, but also to help your teammates, which are helping you bring on the team and teaching you everything they know. So it's a really, good way to provide value to the team as a whole. So, no, you've done a great job at that. Now, are you doing like all big platforms? Are you LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or are you like heavy on LinkedIn, or what's your
Oh,
strategy
great
there?
question. I focus primarily on LinkedIn. I just got on Instagram. Elon was like, "Hey, you gotta hop on Instagram." But prior to getting on Instagram, I was the person who only focused on LinkedIn just for the fact that social media can easily consume my time, and so I wanted to be very mindful and careful about how I use my time, especially being a husband and a father, and I play so many different roles. The time that I spend on social media, I just want to drop a real quick video and just be out. Otherwise, if I'm on all the social media platforms, it does take a little more time for me to sit there and post on all the platforms. But that was one of those things that it was very important for me to just focus on one. And if I start seeing really
Yeah.
huge success on one, then I can carry it over to the next one.
Yeah, no, that's important, and that's one thing about being on each platform is each one kind of interacts differently. So with LinkedIn, I mean, you have much more of your, obviously it's a professional network, so that's one thing is all of your people like to keep it real, like strictly business on there. I always think it's good to do a little bit of both, but mainly the contacts on there, you're going to see people's business side, and that's also what they want to see in regard to content. But however, I kind of use all social platforms. I mean, I utilize them in my business, but like you said, the big thing is the impact is people. So that's one reason why I've really picked up on social media in the past 6-7 months or so, is because of the impact of people and how you can impact so many people with just a 3-minute, 5-minute video that takes you 3 to 5 minutes. You just go out and record yourself and talk about a deal you just closed, or talk about a session of cold calling, whatever it is. But you can impact thousands of people, and it's free. People get value from it, and you can reach them instantly. So it's really fascinating. And one thing about social media that I want to encourage you with is, so I've had an interesting journey with social media and commercial real estate, because very early on I started, and it's like, hey, trying to figure out any and everything I can do to drum up business, and social media is like, hey, that's how you get yourself out there. Well, probably 8 or 9 months into like really, really trying on like LinkedIn and social media, I got discouraged, and I would say I got discouraged because I was mainly on LinkedIn, and I kind of realized to myself I didn't see as much of a direct ROI from it, because mainly the people that are on LinkedIn social media is like other brokers, lenders, maybe some institutional level buyers, bankers, things like that, people like that. So when I got on there and was really, really trying hard at the content, I was like, hey, no, I need to be like more heavily focused on property owners, and buyers, sellers, tenants. And that's the tricky part. And that's, why you were able to help the team, is because you have to do all of them, and like to be really playing at top tier, doing all of them and being able to impact the audience, as a whole on social media, even though they're not directly buyers or sellers. That's still people knowing who you are. Now I know who you are. Like other people know who you are because of social media, and even though I'm not a buyer or seller, that still may relate to deal activity your guys' way. But like I said, if the big thing here is that must be Fuji. If the big thing here is impacting people, then that's you can do that across no matter what platform it is. So no, that's really good stuff, man. And I've been encouraged by seeing you by seeing you go crush it on LinkedIn. So, who do you
I
got in
got I
there?
got Syra. Syra's amazing. This
Oh,
is Augie.
she's
I
also a
can
lot
hear
shorter
him.
than you.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
I know.
met him though. I've met him. Tell him I say
Oh,
hi.
you're on
We've met
Yeah,
headphones.
I'm
before.
on headphones. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was Cyrus.
yeah. They were in our office. Which you weren't able to come down. I didn't see you. I know Elon was here.
Hmm.
I guess you and Adam stayed in crushing deals. We did the SVN Florida
Right.
wide meeting.
Oh yeah, I wasn't here.
Yeah,
When was it? I don't remember.
we were throwing at we're I don't know 4, 5,
Yeah, I
6 months
wasn't
ago.
here yet. Yeah.
So no. Anyway, it was we were throwing axes. We were doing fun stuff. But next time we'll have
Yeah.
to catch you there. But no, man, I'm really encouraged by what you've done, and just want to encourage you even more to the extent of, because like I said, in that initial year process of like me really trying on social media and then kind of getting off of it because I'm like, hey, I'm going to focus 100% on property owners, buyers, sellers, tenants, and then just like left social media out to dry. I didn't get nearly as much I didn't have as much exposure or as much brand awareness as if I would have stayed on the entire time. And so I took a 12 to 18 month hiatus, and now I'm all back on social media. But if I would have stayed on the whole time and had that realization that the ROI is impact of people and getting good message out there, then I could have went further faster. But it's better late than never. So I'm glad I'm back on and trying to leverage all platforms. So. But it's a lot, man. So yeah, as soon as you can get help with it, that's actually one thing that has really granted me the ability to be back on social media. Is now I have the ability to have a team, operations guy, I have an assistant, and then also outsource different media companies to help with some of the video shooting, some of the posting, all of that sort of stuff. Because we have being a broker is a full-time job and a half, so trying to do the social media deal too is just difficult. So.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your content is very well put together. It's very organized. My content is really just on the fly. I press record and I'm on the go. I can see that yours is well thought out. I saw your previous video, and it added a lot of value talking about commissions. You talked about what are the misconceptions on commissions, and you never know who's really watching that. And one of your questions was, what is my return on investment? I really don't know who's watching. And so therefore, that's why I do put out content out there, because even though there may be majority brokers and mortgage lenders, and they may not be the owners, but those folks know, the investors and the owners. And so you never know
100%.
where your name might pop up in the conversation and say, hey, listen, I've heard Augie. He's doing great videos. I would love to just reach out to him and see his perspective on his deal. And there you go. You might have an opportunity. I haven't had that opportunity yet, but I do foresee that I plan to use social media in a way where at least it creates a level of awareness and the opportunity to network with many people outside of just LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And that's one thing, I've learned about social media is, hey, we are in the commercial real estate brokerage industry, and, social media knows that we are in that industry and the people in it. But the more people that know you and what you're doing, the better. So, as commercial real estate, you can be a broker, you can be a lender, you can be a property manager, you can be an investor, whatever. So, in business, I mean, even in the niche of commercial real estate, there's so many different things you can do. So building yourself on these platforms is going to benefit any business that you decide to go into, like I said, in the near term, or in the long term. So it's because it's Cleveland. It's not so much like, hey, you're narrowed down to this niche, even though people know that's what you do. But it's like, hey, we know Cleveland. We love his personality. We love his drive. And we'll do business with him, whether you're a broker, an investor, a lender, a property manager, or if you were to jump ship to another industry. It's like, hey, we like that guy. We know that guy. So the more people that know, who you are and what you do, the better. So no, that's one thing I think is best with social media, because it can pivot industries and business, because it's about the person ultimately, and obviously impacting people is it's just such an incredible thing to do, which, we've been given the ability through content like that. So, no, man, that's awesome. So, and one of the things I think about when, putting out most of the content is trying to steward what I've been given, because that's one of the things I'm biggest about. And you being a man of faith, I wanted to talk to you about it, but I feel a great deal of responsibility to steward the resources that I've been given, and that goes so far beyond money. Even though it's very important to steward that resource as well, but your time, your energy, your focus, your reach, your knowledge, all of those things. So, being able to put that out there, to talk to other people, to, share good news, and really just be a light and be a joy in people's life. And that's one thing that I realize is like, hey, if I feel called to steward these, God-given resources, talents, and abilities, being on social media just amplifies it so much more. So, that's one of the things that I think is social media helps with. It's like, yeah, it's business, but it's like, man, this is life, and this is, what I feel called to do, which is impact people.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. One of the things that I really like what you mentioned is the faith aspect. And, when it comes to being in the corporate world, sometimes I can feel that, there's a few things that you shouldn't talk about, which is faith, politics, and what I've always wanted to do is just be me. There's no way I'm going to do business 10 hours a day and not implement something that's very important to me. That's a huge part of what I believe in, and it's not a bad thing because it's a good thing to love people and to treat people with respect and to carry that into my business. If I'm going to pray at home, I'm also going to pray for my investors and my owners, right?
Yeah.
Or my phone calls that I'm going to be the people that I'm going to reach out to. So I want to integrate that in my business, but also when it comes to my family as well. It's just I don't want to how you say this word, put things in compartments and say, hey, this cannot.
Yeah.
How you say they cannot mingle together. They should. They should come together and integrate together.
Yeah. That's one of the beautiful things about, being with SVN, being in commercial real estate. It is a very entrepreneurial gig, so that is one of the things I love most about this business is, however you go about, drumming up business, closing deals, talking to clients, what type of properties you want to work on, the conversations you're having, whether it's, about retail shopping centers, multifamily assets, whether it's about talking to your investors about, generational wealth and stewarding resources, their faith, your faith, God-given ability, talent, whatever. We're really set up in a realm that's just doesn't have the corporate, hierarchy structure that really just kind of puts you in a box. And, it's just been kind of how America's transformed is, hey, kind of stay in that box, like that corporate box, and like, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. It's like, man, it's like I love to talk about those things because those things, especially, being a man of faith, it's like that's the biggest, Christ is the biggest part of my life, and I can't leave that at home. I can't leave that in a box. That's just who I am, and that's just what I love to talk about, and it just comes out of you. You have a joy, and you have a passion and ambition, and you just have a drive. So no, I think that's really important, man, and that's so good to know. And got a brother in Christ in South Florida that's out there crushing it, and I can see that joy in you. Like I said, all in your social media videos, and just kind of how you guys are interacting with Elon and Adam. It's really encouraging. So really encouraging for me. And I would say one thing, you talked about like the production. You saw how I was, hired out these marketing, video companies that are like producing this high level content. Well, the content that, I'm starting to put out, it does seem like it has a higher production value, because it does. But being able to, jump on the phone and just record your like day to day, or just to document, hey, you're driving to a property, with Elon, or you're jumping on the calls real quick and like documenting that. And, that is one thing that it is such a gift because, and that's something I combat is I don't like to do that, or I'm hesitant to do that because the production quality might be lower. But in reality, people can see like how real that is versus, hey, I might be sitting in front of a 4K camera and all this nice equipment, and it looks really good, but it's like, it's not scripted, but it's like, hey, it's set up in a production setting, and people know that, people can see that, versus like, hey, we're out here, we're doing this, we're closing deals, we're making calls, and that's what people want to see. People want to see the everyday life, of Cleveland and the guys and doing brokerage activities. So it's been really interesting to watch, and you need to call me out, and when you see the high production stuff, be like, shoot some real content, show us the day to day, which, yeah, that's where like the stories and some of the more real stuff comes in. And I actually just got off a call with my consultant earlier, and, really getting on like the story game and being able to document the day to day. It's just harder to do once once you're out of a groove and you kind of get back into a groove. You're like, man, how do I not so much feel comfortable, but just get in a routine, like going to the gym early in the morning. It's like, hey, I'm just going to the gym and I'm just working out, and then I'm going to go home and shower and go to work. Like, but people are like, hey, documenting walking into the gym, or just a thought about how hard it is to wake up early some mornings and why you do it. And, all that stuff can be super valuable content that can be caught on the fly, which is like me walking into the gym at 5 a.m. and I just press record, not like, hey, we set up all these cameras and lights and video, in this setting, and then it's like, all right, roll, So, content, there's another conversation there, but I really admire you being able to just pick up your phone and hit record. So hopefully here in the next, few weeks, few months, you see more of me doing that. And if you don't, just call me out. Feel free.
Absolutely.
So real quick, man, I wanted to get into a little bit of more tactical stuff. So, as far as like, one thing that you guys seem like you do really well at is prospecting. So, prospecting, databasing. So, with databasing and prospecting, obviously go hand in hand. So, for your guys, databasing, how do you roll with that? Are you Excel spreadsheet guys? Are you using CoStar or Reonomy? Like what systems do you use? And like, and as far as like a schedule of cold calling, like how do you get through the list? And, I like to do Friday mornings and chunk out a big chunk of time. I found that people are just happier on Fridays. But, if you call on somebody on like a Wednesday morning, it feels like all their problems are, hitting at once. So they might not be the most receptive to a phone call. But, I just wanted to get your take on databasing, and then also when you guys have found the most success, calling prospects and how you go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to databasing, it's very important that you have all your information available and accurate. The last thing you want to do is be ready. You set up your day, and all the information that you have before you is not accurate, or if it's not ready. And so that databases for me has been a crucial part. So I do set aside a specific time. On Saturday, I come and I database. I figure out an area that I'm actually going to be focusing on, and then afterwards I database. I make sure all the information is accurate for all the owners and the property landlords and whoever I'm calling. As far as my CRM, the CRM that we're using is called Apto, so it's just another form of Salesforce. Very, very robust. It's very easy to find the information if you're looking for a particular owner, specific property. It's very, very detailed and it's easy to navigate. I tried at first the spreadsheet. It's based on the information that you need readily available. It just is overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. And so having a CRM system has definitely made my job easier and a lot quicker for me to visualize on who I need to contact and how to organize my time and prepare. And so, and it's very important. That's why I set up an entire day on Saturday to make sure I get that cut out for me. And so So that's pretty much what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's one thing I found when databasing is having all of the information, humanly possible about the property, about the person, because there's nothing like getting on a cold call and just being stuck with your foot in your mouth, and not realizing, hey, they also own the property next door, or they own, the whole block, or, they actually, own the building that's right next to you that your office is out of, or something to the effect of like, hey, I didn't know that and I should have known that. So that's why doing the research, ahead of time or doing it on a Saturday, whenever, is really key to, not being embarrassed on a phone call, because I know I've definitely been there. And yeah, I've had some really, I'm sure as you put the reps in cold calls, I've had some rough ones. I know my first cold call ever, actually, I kind of like shadowed a guy in our office doing it. And then the first cold call I made was, it was Mr. Jones was the guy's name, and, something of that sort. And, I had contacted him and I got on the phone, and it was a female. And, I asked like, hey, this is Augie Schmidt with SVN. I was looking to speak with Mr. Jones. And then, immediately she cut me off, and then she said that Mr. Jones had just passed away, and it was a very tragic loss for their family. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this, like for those situations and things like that, you just like, it's not so much a foot in your mouth type thing, but you just never know what you're going to get on the other end of a phone call. So you always like, because if the, if the goal here is people and impacting people, and like, you always have to be ready to jump into a situation of like, man, I'm so sorry, that sympathetic situation. Or like, what we get more times than not is, people are saying, why are you calling? Or just, fighting back with fire. I actually talked to a guy, he owns real estate here in Central Florida, and he lives in Miami. And man, you guys, there's something else in the water down there. This guy, I got on the phone, and man, he just started letting me have it. And I actually had my intern, shadowing me, and it was in Spanish. So I full blown got cursed out in Spanish. And then I looked at my intern, Mary Cruz, and I was like, what did he just say to me? And then she's like, yeah, he let you have it, so you just kind of always got to be like, I mean, you can't know what you're going to get on the other end of the call, but it's kind of like expect the unexpected. And also just that realization, like I said, with that, family member passing away, it's like, hey, these are real people. These are real families. And I think a lot of the times people can get lost in the transaction mindset when it's like, hey, it's a property owner. Hey, it's like, no, this is a family. These are real people, and they have real life, situations and circumstances. And sometimes, a lot of times I've had, phone calls start very rough, and then people just, I build a relationship with them or talk to them in a couple of days. They're like, hey man, sorry I answered the phone like that. I was just having a, rough day or tough time. And, cause you never know what people are doing when they pick up the phone to hear you call. So, no, that's one thing that, being informed and being ready for whatever when making calls, major key. So, how many calls would you say you guys are making? Like, what's your, do you have an average daily, or what do you try to get in per week, or what are the reps there?
It's interesting you say, when I first started, it was very difficult for me to even hit 20, 25 phone calls a day. And the target for us here is about 50 phone calls a day. And once you master that, it's anything north of that. Because, we know when it comes to commercial real estate, it's really a numbers game. You want to be able to contact as many people as possible and see what opportunities are out there. And so 50 phone calls a day, that's, that equates to about 250 calls a week. So it's a pretty, it's manageable. It's manageable. But it's only manageable when you're prepared. And that's when I learned a couple weeks back, the only way I can really hit 50 calls is if I come on Saturday and I prepare my day and I know who I'm going to call. Prior to that, when I was only doing 20 to 25, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know who I was calling. I didn't know what I was going to say, but now I do. So it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the trial and error and just putting the reps in and getting better. That's huge for cold calling. And when we initially talked, we said, hey, what do we want to talk about? What are a few things? And one of the things on there was what works and what doesn't for cold calling. And I know for me, what I've found is, and what I was just telling my operations guy, a couple weeks ago was. Operations guy and the intern were in here, and getting to the point in these calls, because a lot of the times it's intimidating to make these cold calls, and you get on the phone and you're like, you're surprised, like sometimes you got a real like contact, like you got a live one, a real person on the phone, and then it's like, hey, it's the right person. So then when you all of a sudden find yourself in a conversation from cold calling, you try to figure out more information about them, what their needs are, what they have going on, what their current place is, in the market, what their strategy is. And there's a weird tension, there's a very hard tension between like, hey, what are their needs? What's their strategy? What do they have going on? Versus like, letting them know the purpose of the call. Because if you try and fumble around a little bit too much over here, and then just like the feeling it out, like the more comfortable area, every once in a while you get that person that speaks out like, all right, hey man, like, what do you want? Like, what, why are you calling me? So like, I've tried to like, make that tension a little bit easier, and you can kind of gauge it a little bit when you first get on a call, because some of these people are moving and shaking, and they're going. So sometimes you got to get to it right off the bat and say, hey, this is why I'm calling. This is who I am. This is what we have going on. This is why I'm calling, and just kind of lay it out there, because sometimes, like I said, they'll say, get to it. Like, what do you want from me? So and I'm sure that's probably even more heightened down in South Florida. Do you find that?
Oh, tremendously. I can say that simply for the fact that I would say that we're in a cold calling saturated market, just for the fact we have a lot of different brokers and different companies that are calling the same owners that I'm calling. So they want to know, what am I trying to get to? Get straight to the point. Because there are many other people who are very well seasoned and know how to get straight to the point, and there are other people who are not well seasoned, that they just want to be able to filter through these calls very quickly, and not have to take too much time on a call with somebody they don't know.
Yeah. No, that's good. And also, like, one thing I assume you've done is kind of leveraged the brand that you're with, and being with Adam and Elon is, I'm sure, is a blessing, because that was like me when I started out here, is like, hey, who are you? And it's like, I'm Augie Schmidt. And you're like, who is that? And why do I need your help? And like you said, a lot of these people, they might be worth 10, 50, $100 million. So it's a very awkward conversation when I first started on the phones, a long time ago, of, you get on the phones and you say, I mean, ultimately the big picture here is like, hey, we're trying to see how we can help you. How we can help you in your current real estate strategies and goals. And then, say I'm, 21 with, 20 years old with peach fuzz on my face, and, barely have a nickel to my name, and this guy's worth 50 or $100 million. And then the conversation is like, I need your help, I need your help. And then I'm going to pay you to help me figure out like my like real estate strategy and like execute on a, multi-million-dollar transaction. Yeah, cool, and I never really got that type of feedback, but that's just what I had in my head of like, man, I can't like provide any like value to these guys when I first started out. But it's like, man, if you are you're teamed up with an incredible firm, hey, this firm and this brand, like, we know how to do deals at a very high level. And it's like being on a team, it's like, that's how the team is set up. So we are actually, providing, extraordinary results for our clients, and just having the confidence in that, it takes some time. But that's one of the biggest things, when being on the phones, especially at first, I found. So yeah, and so one thing, I actually was looking at it right here, and I remembered a question that you asked me, and we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. One of the questions you asked me was one of the first deals that was call to close, and it's hard to remember the first one that was like fully call to close, because you know how it works. Like you call so much, and then one deal, it's like it happens within 3 or 4 months. The other deal, it happens, for me, I found out it happens 18 months later, 2.5 years later. You just never know when that deal is going to come about. But the one that pops up in my head that it was towards the start of my career. I had a couple of years under my belt already in research, and also like have been licensed and selling for quite some time. But one of the deals that pops up is this one right here, which is the Century Boulevard Industrial Park. And man, I just love the story of that deal because I called for lease by owner. I had a client that needed like 6,000 square feet of warehouse space. So I was, hounding LoopNet and Crexy and driving the market, and I found a for lease by owner to that industrial park, and it was a 4,000 square foot unit. So I got on the phone with the owner, and I was asking them about, I said, hey, I got a tenant that's looking for 6,000 square feet. And she said, hey, sorry, all we have is 4. And, just said, hey, it wasn't going to work. But, what that phone call turned into, and really like, this story could go on for a while, I'll keep it, somewhat short. But, at the end of the deal, she told me like, hey, it was an absolute God thing why I ended up talking to you that day. There was just something about you and something about the conversation that just told me to talk to you. So like I said, we struck up a conversation around that for lease by owner and, it not working out. But then it went into, hey, what's the story of the park? So, her husband was actually worked in one of the buildings and then ended up, I believe he either bought the business or bought the building that he was in. And, then just accumulated all the buildings up and down the street over the next 30, 40 years. And I mean, after 7, 8 years in, he left that business and then just was, leasing and owning, managing real estate, that industrial park. So I believe they owned it and managed it for like 35 years. And on closing day, so we decided they thought it was worth around like $3.5–4 million. I told them I thought it was worth more than $7 million, so they were pleasantly surprised there. They ended up listing the property with us, selling the property, and at closing was also their retirement day. So and that was honestly how I got to know a lot of people in commercial real estate, was having that larger listing, only being a few years into the business, being trusted with that. And it's a complex deal. There was 38 tenants, 11 buildings, 38 tenants, and 125,000 square feet. And we were kind of going through. It was before COVID. But, it was one of those things that, large task at hand, and just stepped up to the plate and executed. And all of a sudden that just put a, gold star on my resume, if you will, and said, hey, this is the level that we're playing at. And then also, business gets business. So, taking that, the news of the sale and saying, going to other property owners and saying, hey, these are the results we just provided for our clients. That was one of the best deals of my career, not only in a monetary sense, but just in a satisfaction and just being able to serve that family well and watching them retire, and just her telling me and being straight up like, hey, it was a God thing why I talked to you, and they were Christ-centered family and really awesome. So their grandkids actually still go to the Christian school that my kids go to. So I see them at like events and whatnot every once in a while. So awesome family, and just they're a massive blessing to me. So yeah, that was not the first call to close, but
wow,
definitely one that put a gold star on my on my resume for sure. So. It was a special one. It was a very special one, man. And I can already see, I see that, in these deals that you're already doing with Elon and Adam, you guys are rolling, man. So I'm excited to continue to see what you guys are doing. Anything else before we go, man? Anything you can think of?
I'm all the way over here in Boca.
You feel free to fire away if you have anything.
I wanted to ask you is just, in your first year in, what would you say to yourself, looking back? What would you say to yourself your first year in, and how would you encourage yourself?
Yeah, so I would say, if I could go back to my first year self, the biggest thing I would say is just don't give up. Just keep pushing. And I don't know if you've seen that meme of the two coal miners, and they were like mining towards a path, and one like almost hits a thing of diamonds and the other one is like far away or whatever. You've seen that. So that was I was almost the guy that walked away from all the diamonds when he had that far left to go. So I had one eye on Indeed, looking for jobs, and then one eye on commercial real estate in like November, December. Forgot what year that was, but and I pretty much told myself I was in a tough spot financially, and I told myself like, hey, I have until March in order to close a deal, and then that's it for me. Like that was all the money I had, so I said, hey, I'm gonna go for it. So, but that don't give up comes in that hey November December mindset, because I could have said at that point, hey, I'll go get a job working a corporate real estate job or working for this firm, and be able to make much more than I'm making now. But I didn't realize I was almost there. That in that February, March of that following year, when I decided to go all in, and that it was going to just explode with growth, and that's when my career really took off. And yeah, I ended up closing a deal in February when, like I said, I was going to run out of money in March. So, absolute God thing. And that year I ended up being ranked like number 3 out of 1,600 advisors with a couple of the deals I did for a certain month. And I was almost that guy that walked away. So, I know it sounds kind of cliche and corny, but like I was almost that guy, and it was more towards the end of year 2. But not to give up. That's the biggest thing, but also like really invest in the education component of it, because early on the biggest thing we have in this business is we're providing a service to our clients, and they're counting on us to be educated, to be experts, and to really serve them well. And a lot of these clients, like I said, they're worth 10, 50, $100 million. So if you're going to provide a service to them and be a help to them, then you have to be dang good. So that was me spending my first 2 years in the research side of the business. I got incredibly dangerous with education, and I was given that ability through that research department here at the firm, and that really allowed me to have a massive knowledge of the market, of the properties, and just how they, how the whole industry worked. So then when it was my time to shine and my time to, really hit the ground running, I was, like I said, before almost giving up, I was able to hit the ground running and, really just use that knowledge that I had, to achieve massive success. So that was probably the biggest thing is, the education is very important. And, you can always, some people are good with like, how they talk and sales, and they're just a good, likable people person, which you are. But you're doing the right thing and being with the right crew, because being educated, it's a full, it's the full package. You have to be educated. You have to know your market. You have to know the property types, the industry. You have to be good with people, looking out for their best interest. And, I think that's one thing. It seems like you got it. So it's only a matter of time for you. So I'm really encouraged by you. I'm excited to see, what you guys are doing down there, blowing up in South Florida in a market that would be considered saturated. You guys have a lot of competition down there, but the way SVN does things and the way, your team specifically works and how y'all grind, y'all are making a big dent in the market, man. So, just want to let you know I'm encouraged by you guys, and for you personally, it's only a matter of time. All those, especially if you keep racking up numbers in the household.
Father Abraham.
Before we go, man. So are you gonna stop at 5, or are you Father Abraham
I
here?
decided to also join commercial real estate. This is the only way I can really
had many sons. Yes.
To have the income to provide for my family. Otherwise, if commercial real estate doesn't work out, then I will stop at 5. But if it works out, I'm going for 10, baby.
Yeah. No. I love that, man. The income and the flexibility of the schedule. The flexibility is the biggest thing, and kind of like working as hard as you want to work, the hours you want to work, and just how lucrative the industry is, as you were saying. I used to want to make a lot of money to buy fancy things like cars and watches and all those things, as you do when you're a teenage boy. But when I had my first kid, when I had AJ, I just said, no, I just want to make a lot of money to have a lot of kids. So we're on the same page there. I'll race you to 10, but you got a head start. So. Well, cool, man. So I really, really appreciate you coming on. No, it was really good talking to you, getting to know more about you, and just hearing what you guys are doing in South Florida. You guys are, blowing it up down there. So, yeah, man, I'm sure we'll link up more,
Thank you so much
an
for having
event
me.
in person here soon. But just really wanted to thank you for getting on the call. Give Elon and Adam and the whole team down there my love, and I'll catch you again here soon.